The massive research vessel hung silently in Earth's orbit, its sleek hull gleaming under the pale moonlight. Inside the main laboratory, lead scientist Du-1 stared at the holographic display with growing confusion. He had studied thousands of species across the galaxy, but something about these humans was different. "Captain Jia," he called out, his eyes never leaving the screen. "You need to see this." The ship's captain walked over, her uniform perfectly pressed as always. "What have you found, lead scientist?" "The initial scans don't make sense." Du-1 pointed to the shifting numbers and graphs. "Our quantum scanner is showing readings I've never seen before." The quantum biological scanner was the pride of the Galactic Coalition's scientific fleet. It could break down any living thing into its smallest parts and understand exactly how it worked. It had never failed before, until now. "Look at this," Du-1 said, pulling up an image of a human running a marathon. "Their bodies are incredibly inefficient. They waste energy, they overheat easily, and their bones are surprisingly fragile." He paused, bringing up another image. "But then they do things like this." The screen showed humans climbing Mount Everest, diving into deep oceans, and surviving in both freezing cold and burning heat. "That should be impossible with their biological structure," Jaya said, frowning at the display. "Are you sure the scanner is working properly?" "I've checked it 3 times, Du-1 replied. "The scanner is perfect. It's the humans who don't make sense." Young researcher He-Jin spoke up from her workstation. "Sir, I found something else strange." She waved her hand, and new data appeared in the air. "Look at their brains. The scanner shows they're using simple electrochemical signals, just like most basic life forms. But the patterns," she trailed off, shaking her head. "What about the patterns?" Jaya asked. "They're too complex. It's like watching a primitive computer solve quantum equations. It shouldn't be able to do that, but somehow it does." Du-1 rubbed his temples. In 30 years of research, he had never been so puzzled. The scanner could map out the life signs of a gas giant's floating creatures in seconds. It could understand the brain patterns of silicon-based life forms. It had even helped them communicate with beings made of pure energy. But humans? Humans were breaking all the rules. "Captain," he said finally, "I request permission to launch a detailed study. We need more data." Jaya looked out the observation window at the blue planet below. Protocol said they should move on. If a species was this unpredictable, the Coalition usually marked their planet for later contact, once they were more developed. But something about these humans caught her interest. Maybe it was the way they built cities in deserts and Arctic tundras, or how they went into space with technology that was barely more advanced than burning fuel. They weren't just surviving. They were thriving in ways that defied explanation. "Permission granted," she said, "but be careful. If the scanner can't understand them, we don't know what they're capable of." Du-1 nodded and turned to his team. "Prepare the deep scan protocols. He-Jin, I want you to focus on their neural patterns. There's something there we're missing." As the research team rushed to work, Du-1 looked again at the planet below. In all his years exploring the galaxy, he had never been so excited, or so nervous, about studying a new species. The humans were a puzzle, and he was determined to solve it. He just didn't realize yet that some puzzles can't be solved with scanners and science alone. 1 week into their study of Earth, Du-1's research team was more confused than ever. The quantum scanner's results made less sense with each new scan. The lead scientist sat in the observation room, watching streams of data flow across multiple screens. "This can't be right," he muttered, pulling up another set of readings. "He-Jin, come look at these results." The young researcher hurried over, her eyes widening as she saw the numbers. "But sir, these readings, they're impossible." "Exactly." Du-1 pointed to a particular scan of a human cave diver. "According to our data, this human should have died from the pressure. Their body structure isn't built for such depths." But not only did they survive, they stayed down there for hours. Hey Jin pulled up more files on her tablet. It's not just the Daggers. Look at these desert runners. Their body temperature should have killed them. And these mountain climbers, their oxygen levels dropped far below survival limits, but they kept going. What's even stranger, Do-Won said, is that the scanner shows different readings for the same human on different days. It's like their biological limits keep changing. Captain Jada entered the room, followed by their lead biologist, Sunme. The captain looked concerned. "Report," she ordered. "What have you found?" Sunme stepped forward, holding up a holographic model of a human. "Captain, these humans are breaking every rule we know about biology. Watch this." She played a recording of a mother lifting a heavy vehicle to save her child. "Our scanner shows her muscles aren't strong enough for this, but she did it anyway." "Could the scanner be malfunctioning?" Jaya asked. "No," Do-Won replied firmly. "We've tested it on every other life form on the planet. Animals, plants, insects. It works perfectly on them. It's only the humans that don't make sense." Jin had been quiet, studying another set of readings. "Sir," she said suddenly, "I noticed something strange. When humans are alone, their physical limits match our scanner's predictions. But when they're in groups or when someone they care about is in danger, everything changes." The team gathered around her screen. She showed them multiple examples. Soldiers carrying wounded friends for miles, swimmers fighting impossible currents to save strangers, disaster survivors going days without food or water. "It's like their bodies don't know they have limits," Sunmai said, shaking her head in wonder. Do-Won sat down heavily in his chair. "In all my years of research, I've never seen anything like this. We can predict the physical capabilities of every species we've ever studied. But humans keep surprising us." "There's more," Jin added. "Look at their recovery patterns." She brought up new charts. When our scanner says they should be exhausted or injured, they often just keep going. Sometimes they even seem to get stronger after being pushed to their limits. Captain Jia studied the data carefully. "Could there be some factor we're missing? Something our scanner can't detect?" "That's what worries me," Do-Won admitted. "Our quantum scanner is designed to detect and analyze everything, from subatomic particles to complex biological systems. If there's something it can't understand about humans." He left the sentence unfinished, but everyone in the room felt the weight of his words. They had come expecting to study a developing species. Instead, they found themselves facing a mystery that challenged everything they thought they knew about life in the galaxy. "Continue your research," Jaya ordered, "and expand the scan range. I want to know everything about these humans. If our most advanced technology can't understand them, we need to find out why." As the team returned to work, Jin couldn't help but smile. Maybe there were some things in the universe that couldn't be measured by machines, no matter how advanced they were. The arrival of Sunmei, the coalition's top xenobiologist, changed everything. She didn't just want to look at scanner readings. She wanted to see humans up close. After getting special permission from Captain Jia, Sunmai set up observation posts around the world. "These readings don't tell the whole story," she told Do-Won as they watched a group of humans through their cloaked cameras. "We need to see them in action." The first week of close observation left the whole team speechless. They watched humans living in places their scanner said was impossible to survive. "Look at this settlement in Siberia," Sunmai said, pointing to her screen. "-60 degrees. Our scanner says humans should freeze to death in minutes at this temperature." But they're not just surviving. They're building houses and raising families. Jin pulled up another feed. "And here's the opposite. Death Valley, one of the hottest places on Earth. Humans are camping there for fun." She shook her head in disbelief. "For fun?" Do-Won moved between the screens, taking notes. "Their technology is the strangest part," he said. "It's so simple. Basic insulation, primitive heating systems, nothing special. According to everything we know, it shouldn't be enough." Sun Mai spent hours watching humans in extreme situations, mountain climbers pushing through storms, deep-sea fishermen fighting huge waves, desert nomads crossing vast empty spaces with minimal water. "There's something else," she said one evening, calling the team together. "Watch this." She played a video of humans building a house. "See how they work together. When one gets tired, another steps in. When someone makes a mistake, others help fix it. It's not just about physical strength, it's about how they support each other." Captain Jia, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Could this be what our scanner can't understand? This cooperation?" "Maybe partly," Sun Mai replied. "But there's more. Look at this." She showed new footage of a human rescue team. Their vital signs say they should be exhausted. The conditions are terrible. But they keep going because someone needs help. He Jin had been working on the scanner, trying to adjust it to better understand humans. "The problem is," she explained, "our scanner only measures physical things. Heart rate, muscle strength, body temperature. It can't measure whatever makes humans push past these limits." Do Won rubbed his eyes tiredly. "In all my years of research, I've never seen anything like this. Every other species we've studied follows clear biological rules. When they're tired, they rest. When conditions are bad, they leave. But humans decide what's impossible." Sun Mai finished his thought. "They don't let our scanner's definition of possible stop them." Captain Jia walked to the observation window, looking down at Earth. "This changes everything we thought we knew," she said quietly. "We came here thinking we were studying a developing species. Instead, we might be the ones who need to develop," He Jin said. "Our scanner is the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but it can't understand the most basic thing about humans, their will to keep going." Sun Mi nodded, already planning her next observation posts. "We need to keep watching," she said. "There's so much more to learn. And maybe," she smiled, "maybe we need to learn not just about humans, but from them." As the team went back to work, they didn't realize they were part of a bigger change. For the first time in coalition history, their most advanced technology wasn't trying to understand a less developed species. It was failing to understand a species that had developed in ways their science couldn't measure. He Jin knew she was breaking every rule in the coalition handbook. Contact with developing species was strictly forbidden. But after weeks of watching humans, she couldn't help herself. She had to know more. She chose a remote mountain area for her first contact. Their scans showed a single human living there, running some kind of training camp. Using the ship's personal cloaking device, she landed near the camp just before sunrise. The human was already awake, chopping wood. He Jin checked her scanner one last time. "Normal human male, age approximately 35 Earth years," she muttered to herself. "Name according to local records, Kang." Taking a deep breath, she switched off her cloaking device. Kang stopped chopping immediately, turning to face her. To her surprise, he didn't seem shocked by her clearly alien appearance. "I was wondering when one of you would finally come down," he said calmly, setting down his axe. "I've seen your ship's lights at night." He Jin froze. That was impossible. Their ship was completely hidden from Earth technology. But before she could respond, Kang pointed to his small cabin. "Come in. It's cold out here, and I just made coffee." Inside the cabin, He Jin found herself sitting at a simple wooden table, holding a cup of hot black liquid. Her scanner analyzed it automatically. Caffeine, water, various plant compounds. Nothing dangerous. "You've been watching us," Kang said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," He Jin admitted. "We're confused by humans. Our technology can't fully understand you." Kang laughed. "We can't fully understand ourselves either. That's what makes us interesting." He gestured out the window. "Want to see what I do here?" For the next few hours, He Jin watched as Kang trained a group of humans who arrived at his camp. They climbed rocks with minimal gear, crossed icy streams, built shelters from nothing. Her scanner kept showing warnings, dangerous conditions, excessive strain, high risk of injury. But the humans kept going. They helped each other, encouraged each other, pushed each other to do more. Your scanner, Kang said during a break, pointing to her device. It measures what our bodies can do, right? Yes, He Jin replied. But with humans, the readings don't make sense. You do things you shouldn't be able to do. Kang smiled. Because your scanner measures limits. We see limits as challenges. He pointed to a young human who had been struggling all morning. Watch him. The human faced a high cliff, one he had failed to climb 3 times already. But this time, his friends gathered around, cheering him on. He Jin's scanner showed his heart rate spike, his muscles straining beyond safe levels. He'd made it to the top. Your scanner said that was impossible, Kang said quietly. But he didn't know that. All he knew was that his friends believed he could do it. He Jin stared at her scanner, then at the celebrating humans. Our most advanced technology can't understand something as simple as friendship. Not just friendship, Kang corrected. Determination. Hope. The simple belief that we can do better than our best. He looked at her curiously. Don't your people have these things? We. He Jin paused. When was the last time she had seen anyone in the coalition push past their assigned limits? When had they last tried to do the impossible? As she prepared to leave that evening, Kang handed her a cup of coffee to take with her. Come back tomorrow, he said. Bring your scanner. I'll show you more things it can't understand. Flying back to the ship, He Jin knew she should report her contact with Kang. It was against all protocols. But somehow she felt these protocols, like her scanner's readings, were missing something important about humans. Back on the research ship, Sunmei couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all the data they had collected. Something was missing. Something big. She walked to the main lab, not surprised to find Do-1 already there. You see it too, don't you? She asked, sitting down next to him. The pattern we're missing. Do-1 nodded, pulling up a series of scans. Look at these readings. When we measure a human alone, the scanner predicts their limits perfectly. But add just one more human. He waved his hand, and the numbers changed dramatically. It's their minds, Sunmai said suddenly. We've been so focused on their bodies, we forgot about their minds. Just then, the Jin rushed into the lab. She looked nervous but excited. I need to tell you something, she said. I made contact. Instead of being angry, both scientists leaned forward with interest. He Jin told them about Kang and his training camp, about the coffee, and about the young man who climbed the impossible cliff. Don't you see? Sunmi jumped up. This proves my theory. Their minds are changing their bodies. Captain Jia walked in during this conversation. Explain, she ordered, but her voice was curious rather than angry. Sunmi pulled up multiple scanner readings. Look here, a human mother lifting a car to save her child. Here, a person with a broken leg walking 3 miles for help. Here, soldiers carrying wounded friends for hours. Their bodies say they can't, but their minds say they must. The scanner can't understand it. Do-1 added, because it can't measure things like determination, hope, or love. He Jin spoke up. Kang told me they see limits as challenges. When we say something's impossible, they try to prove it possible. Captain Jia walked to the main screen, studying the readings. Are you saying their greatest strength is something we can't measure? Exactly. Sunmai was getting excited. Our scanner measures what's possible based on biology. But humans decide what's possible based on need, or desire, or love, or coffee. He Jin added with a small smile, remembering her morning with Kang. Do-1 started typing rapidly. We need to redesign our whole approach. We've been trying to understand humans through pure science. But they're more than just bodies and brains. They're beings who can change their own limits. That's why they survive everywhere. Sunmei continued. It's not their bodies that adapt. It's their minds that push their bodies to adapt. They decide to survive, so they do. Captain Jaya was quiet for a long moment. "This changes everything," she finally said. "Not just our research, but how we see development. We thought our scanner proved we were more advanced. But maybe we're the ones who need to develop." He-Jin finished. "We let our technology tell us what's possible. Humans tell themselves what's possible." The team worked through the night, reprogramming their scanner to include new factors. They added measurements for group dynamics, emotional states, and what they called the determination factor. But even with these changes, the scanner still couldn't fully predict what humans would do. And slowly, the team realized that was exactly what made humans special. "Maybe," Sun Mai said as they watched the sunrise from the ship's window, "the most advanced species isn't the one with the best technology. Maybe it's the one that refuses to be limited by any technology, even their own." Down on Earth, Kang was making another pot of coffee, smiling as he watched the strange lights in the sky. He knew He-Jin would be back. After all, humans weren't the only ones who could learn to push past their limits. The warning alarms on the research ship went off at exactly 3:47 a.m. Earth time. A massive earthquake was about to hit the region where Kang's training camp was located. Captain Jia rushed to the bridge, finding her crew already at their stations. "Magnitude 8.9, Do-1 reported, his face pale. "The mountain region will be hit hard. We need to leave now, according to protocol." He-Jin stood up from her station. "But Kang is down there, and his students." "Protocol is clear," Captain Jaya said, though her voice shook slightly. "We cannot interfere with natural disasters on developing worlds." The earthquake hit. On their screens, they watched as the ground shook and mountains crumbled. Their scanners showed hundreds of humans in danger. Among them was the steady dot that represented Kang's life signal. "Look," Sun Mei pointed to the screens. Instead of running away, humans were running toward the danger. Their scanners showed rescue teams forming within minutes of the first shake. "That's impossible," Do-1 whispered. "Their bodies are already tired from being woken up. The cold is severe. The terrain is dangerous. They should be seeking safety." But the humans didn't care what they should be doing. The team watched as people formed rescue chains, dug through rubble with bare hands, and carried strangers to safety. "Their life signs are far beyond safe levels," Sun Mai reported, watching her scanner. "By our measurements, they should be collapsing from exhaustion." Then He-Jin saw something that made her heart stop. Kang's signal was moving deeper into the danger zone. He was leading the group toward a collapsed building where children were trapped. Captain Jaya stood silent, watching the screens. Protocol said they should leave. Their safety systems were begging them to withdraw to a safe distance. "But we're staying," she announced suddenly. "And we're helping." "But Captain," Do-1 started, "the protocols." "The protocols don't understand humans," she said firmly. "And neither do we if we leave now." They used their ship's advanced sensors to locate people trapped under rubble. He-Jin broke protocol completely by sending data directly to Kang's phone, helping his rescue team find survivors. The research team watched in amazement as humans worked without rest for hours. Their scanners kept showing that people should be stopping, should be giving up, should be physically unable to continue. The humans kept proving their scanners wrong. "Look at their readings," Sun Mai said in wonder. "The more tired they get, the harder they push. The more impossible it seems, the more determined they become." They saw humans make chains to cross dangerous ground, using their bodies as human bridges. They watched as people gave their warm clothes to strangers, shared their last water, and kept digging even when their hands were bleeding. "The scanner can't predict any of this," Do-1 said, shaking his head. "It says they're all beyond their limits, but they just keep going." After 20 hours, when the worst was over, Captain Jida finally gave the order to pull back. They watched as Kang's team finished rescuing the last child from the collapsed building. "Our most advanced scanner," He-Jin said quietly, can measure everything except what matters most to humans, the need to help others. As they prepared to move the ship to a safe distance, they took one last look at their screens. The humans weren't celebrating their impossible achievements. Instead, they were setting up shelters, sharing food, and already starting to rebuild. Maybe, Captain Jaya said, we need to rewrite our protocols. Any species that can ignore their own limits to help others, that's not a developing species. That's a species we need to learn from. After the earthquake, Do-1's team worked day and night to understand what they had seen. The main lab of the research ship was covered in data displays showing scanner readings from the rescue efforts. I think I finally understand why our scanner fails, Sun Mai announced one morning, calling everyone together. We've been using it wrong all along. Captain Jia, who now spent most of her time in the lab, looked up with interest. Explain. The scanner isn't broken, Sun Mai said, pulling up the rescue footage. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, measuring what's physically possible. But humans don't care about what's possible. Jin nodded excitedly. Yes, look at this reading. She pointed to a scan of a rescue worker who had lifted a heavy beam. The scanner said she couldn't lift this weight. It was right. Her muscles weren't strong enough. But she did it anyway because a child was trapped. It's like they have two sets of limits, Do-1 added. The physical ones our scanner can measure, and the mental ones it can't. Sun Mai walked to the main screen and started playing multiple rescue videos. Watch what happens when we stop trying to measure what they can do and instead measure what they actually do. The team had modified their scanner to include new measurements. Instead of just showing physical limits, it now tracked things like determination levels, emotional states, and group support. See this. Sun Mai pointed to a new reading. When humans work together, their individual limits don't just add up, they'd multiply. 10 humans working together don't just do 10 times more. They do things that should be impossible for even 100 humans. Jin thought about Kang and his training camp. They don't break their limits, she said slowly. They just don't accept them in the first place. Captain Jia walked closer to the screens. Show me the comparison with other species we've studied. The displays filled with data from across the galaxy. Advanced species with powerful bodies, brilliant minds, or amazing technologies. But none of them showed the same patterns as humans. Other species stop when they reach their limits, Do-1 explained. Even the most advanced ones. They use technology to go further. But humans just decide their limits are wrong and push past them. And it's not just in emergencies, Sun Mai added. She showed new footage, athletes training, students studying, workers doing seemingly impossible tasks. They do this every day, in big and small ways. They constantly challenge what our scanner says is possible. Captain Jaya was quiet for a long time, watching the screens. Finally, she turned to her team. What does this mean for how we classify species? It means we've been wrong, Jin said firmly. We thought advanced technology meant advanced development. But humans show us there's something more important. The ability to grow, to change, to push past what seems possible. They don't let tools define them. Sun Mai agreed. Not even their own bodies. They use everything. Emotion, determination, cooperation. To go beyond what science says they can do. Do-1 started typing rapidly. We need to completely rebuild our understanding of species development. It's not about what they can do with their technology. It's about what they can imagine doing and their determination to make it happen. As the team worked on their new findings, Jin looked out the window at Earth below. Their most advanced scanner, the pride of the Coalition's technology, had been humbled by beings who simply refused to accept its definitions of possible and impossible. Maybe, she said softly, that's what really makes a species advanced, not having the best tools to measure limits, but having the courage to challenge those limits. The presentation room of the Galactic Coalition's main science center was packed. Scientists from 100 worlds waited to hear about the Earth research mission. Do-1 stood at the front, nervous but excited, with his team beside him. Our mission was simple, he began. Study humans with our most advanced scanner. But we found something that changed everything we thought we knew. The room filled with surprised whispers as he showed the earthquake rescue footage. The scanner readings made no sense to the audience. Humans doing things their bodies shouldn't be able to do, working far beyond their physical limits. We thought our scanner was broken. Sun Mai stepped forward to explain. But the scanner worked perfectly. It was our understanding that was broken. He Jin played a recording from Kang's training camp. This human taught us something important, she said. He showed us that measuring physical limits isn't enough. The scanner can't measure a human's will to succeed. The audience watched as Kang's students accomplished seemingly impossible tasks. They saw the young man climbing the cliff he had failed 3 times before. The scanner readings showed clearly that he shouldn't have made it. But he did make it. He-Jin continued. Because his friends believed in him. Because he decided to keep trying. Our scanner can't measure things like friendship or determination. Captain Jia stepped forward. We need to change how we classify developing species, she announced. Humans may not have our advanced technology, but they have something more important. The screens behind them filled with images. Rescue workers pushing past exhaustion. Athletes breaking records. Students solving impossible problems. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. They have the ability to decide their own limits, Do-1 explained. When we say something is impossible, they try anyway. When our scanner says they can't do something, they prove it wrong. A senior coalition scientist stood up. Are you suggesting we change our entire classification system because of one species? Yes, Sun Mai answered firmly. Because humans show us that true advancement isn't about having better tools to measure limits. It's about having the courage to challenge those limits. The team revealed their new scanning system. Instead of just measuring physical capabilities, it now included factors like emotional strength, group cooperation, and what they called the human factor, the ability to push past normal limits. But the most important thing we learned, Ho-Jin said, is that some things can't be measured at all. And those might be the most important things. The room was quiet as the team showed their final piece of evidence, the earthquake rescue efforts. They showed how humans had ignored all physical limits to help others, how they had worked together to do impossible things. We came to study them, Do-1 concluded. Instead, they taught us. They showed us that being advanced isn't about having the best scanner. It's about being able to see past what any scanner says is possible. To everyone's surprise, Kang himself walked onto the stage. He-Jin had invited him to speak to the coalition. He looked at the advanced aliens with their technology and smiled. Your scanner is amazing, he said simply. It can measure everything except what matters most. The human heart, the human spirit, and the human ability to help each other. Maybe that's what you need to learn to measure next. As the presentation ended, the coalition leaders had a lot to think about. They had built their whole society on measuring and understanding everything. Now they had found something their best technology couldn't understand, human potential. And maybe, they realized, that was exactly why humans were so special. 5 years after their first Earth mission, the research ship returned to orbit. The old quantum scanner sat quietly in a corner of the lab, replaced by newer equipment that measured both physical and mental factors. But even these improved scanners couldn't fully understand humans. And that, the coalition had finally realized, was perfectly fine. He-Jin stood in Kang's training camp, now much bigger than before. She wasn't hiding anymore. Earth had officially joined the Galactic Coalition, not as a developing world, but as an equal partner. Coffee, Kang offered, just like he had on that first morning. Your new scanners still can't explain why humans love this stuff so much, can they? He-Jin laughed, accepting the cup. No, they can't. Just like they still can't explain how your students do these things. She watched as a group climbed a cliff that even their new equipment said was too difficult. Up in orbit, Do-1 and Sun-Mei were working with human scientists, creating a completely new way of understanding life in the galaxy. The old scanner that couldn't understand humans now sat in the Coalition's main museum, with a simple label: the tool that taught us our limits. Remember when we thought we were coming to study a developing species? Sun-Mei asked Do-1 as they watched Earth through the ship's window. Instead, they developed us, Do-1 replied. Look at the Coalition now. The changes were everywhere. Coalition ships now had human crew members who found creative solutions that no scanner could have predicted. Coalition scientists learned to look beyond what their instruments said was possible. Even their most advanced worlds had started teaching their children that limits were meant to be challenged. Captain Jia, now Admiral Jia, walked into the lab. The new joint training program starts today, she announced. Humans teaching Coalition members how to push past their limits, and we teaching them about the galaxy's technology. Down at the training camp, a young Coalition scientist was trying to climb the cliff. His personal scanner told him he couldn't do it, but his human teammates kept encouraging him, just like they had encouraged each other that day during the earthquake rescue. He made it to the top. See, Kang said to Hui-Jin. He just needed to stop listening to the scanner and start believing in himself. In the Coalition's main science center, the new display showed a different way of measuring species development. Instead of just counting their technological achievements, it looked at their ability to adapt, to help each other, to push beyond what seemed possible. The humans were never really a developing species, Do-1 told his students. They were already developed in ways our scanners couldn't see. We just needed to develop enough to understand that. Sun-Mi's new research focused on what she called the possibility factor, measuring not what species could do, but what they believed they could do. The results were changing how the Coalition saw the whole galaxy. Hui-Jin, finishing her coffee with Kang, looked up at the sky where the research ship hung in orbit. You know what's funny? She said. We came here with our most advanced scanner to understand humans. But humans understood something more important all along. What's that? Kang asked, though his smile showed he already knew. That the most important things can't be scanned, measured, or predicted. They can only be discovered by trying the impossible. As the sun set on another Earth Day, humans and Coalition members worked together at the camp, each learning from the other. The scanners still showed many things were impossible. But now, finally, the Coalition understood. That's exactly where humans began to show what was possible.